All right, hello and welcome to this webinar. My name is Natalie Ibarra. I am the Communications Manager for NFCYM, which is the National Federation for Catholic Youth Ministry. A little background about NFCYM before we get started is that we really aim and look forward to supporting and assisting and accompanying all those who accompany young people. So that means parish youth ministers, diocesan directors, high school campus ministers, parents, and so on and so forth. Anybody that works with young people, NFCYM is there to support them. But we are all gathered here today for this webinar because NFCYM also hosts NCYC, which is the National Catholic Youth Conference, which we'll be chatting about a little bit more as we get into this webinar. So to start us off, I would like to have us all start in prayer. NFCYM is consecrated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and so that's where I am going to lead that prayer. So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. O most holy heart of Jesus, fountain of every blessing, I adore you, I love you, and with a lively sorrow for my sins, I offer you this poor heart of mine. Make me humble, patient, pure, and wholly obedient to your will. Grant, good Jesus, that I may live in you and for you. Protect me in the midst of danger. Comfort me in my afflictions. Give me health of body, assistance in my temporal needs, your blessings on all that I do, and the grace of a holy death. Within your heart, I place my every care. In every need, let me come to you with humble trust, saying, Heart of Jesus, help me. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. So I have with me two wonderful people, two wonderful parents and ministers from across the country. So if you can please introduce yourselves. Either one of you can go first.
Ladies first.
My name is Gigi Wilwerding, and I am a youth minister at a medium-sized parish in the city of Des Moines, Iowa, in the Diocese of Des Moines. And I am the mom of two young people. They're not really that young anymore. A 20-year-old Joseph, who goes to school in North Carolina and is in college, and my daughter Catherine, who is a junior in high school. Yeah, that's good enough for now, I think.
Great. My name is Joaquin Trejo. I am the coordinator of the Office of Youth Ministry for the Archdiocese of Washington. I'm also a parent, but I have adult children and three grandchildren. And I also worked in a parish as a director of religious education. And we had one of the largest family catechesis ministry in the Archdiocese. So hopefully we'll be sharing some of that experience with you guys.
I hope to listen.
Thank you, Gigi and Joaquin. As we go into these questions, any of you attendees, please feel free to drop in a question in the Q&A. We will try to get to them, but sometimes the conversation is so good that we don't have time for it. But just know that after this webinar is completed, we are going to upload the recording and then send out an email so that way you can have the recording and then also have answers to the Q&A as Joaquin, Gigi, and I just continue to flesh out this conversation on ministering to our young people as parents and how we can help them grow in faith. So the first question that I'd like to start off with is, why is it important for teens to develop a strong faith foundation before they graduate high school? Either can go first.
I think it's important for two things. One, high school, they are just so busy and so over-programmed, addicted to their phones. Not that that doesn't happen in middle school, but I think they're always afraid they're going to miss something. So I think it's important to start those habits before they're so busy that they know sort of what's expected in your house in terms of, holy days of obligations, Sundays, that sort of thing. And then the other thing that I think it's important, oh my goodness, as a youth minister, is there's so much information now about kids really discerning out of their faith at a younger and younger age. So I think as a youth minister, it's really important to get them hooked earlier.
Yes. What I tell parents, that will keep your kids out of trouble. Faith, according to many researchers, is an area that will impact their life, and they will most likely not get involved in violent crimes or anything like that. So that's one side. But the other side, it's important for their whole development as a person, because faith will touch almost every single aspect of their life, relationships, education, um, you name it. So that would be an important area that we need to look into when we, as a family, gather. How do I, sustain? And we'll get into that.
DJ, I think you brought up a really great point too about getting into habits. You know, some young people will enter military after high school. Some might go off to college out of state. Some might stay home. And I know a lot of parents hope for that sometimes. And I think when we are brought into a whole new schedule, you know, we go from having 6 classes in high school to now maybe 4 per semester. There's a different balance of time. And then now we bring in work for many young people. So having that preset schedule almost and having those like norms that when I wake up, when I get into a car, I am doing a quick little prayer. I make sure to set time for mass, or maybe you're a family who is partakes in at least a monthly or maybe every Friday adoration. How do you start to form your own schedule when mom and dad aren't the ones that are always driving you anymore? You are now almost in charge of your own schedule. So having some of those traditions, some of those like scheduling practices even beforehand, I think is also very beneficial.
We were really intentional about it for our kids when they were little. My son is on a travel team, he's a triathlete. And so that was just expected wherever we went for the weekend. Um, we always laugh that, there is this thing called, your phone, and it can tell you where mass is all over the country. And so we kind of laughed because we got into habits with parishes when we visited the same place twice. Like, oh yeah, this is this church. This is why we're choosing this one. And the team knew that's where we were going to be Saturday afternoon at 4:30 or 5. And then when my son was looking at schools and now my daughter, we also looked where the nearest church was going to be and what that church was going to be like. Would it be something, would they jive with that parish? Would they not jive with that parish? Um, and having launched our son in North Carolina, we went and found like it wasn't going to be the closest parish, it was the next closest parish that we thought he would like. And we went and prayed in adoration before, we left him there. And when we were there with him, so we really knew what the church was going to be like. And it's amazing to me that he has chosen to do that on his own. I'm very thankful. He kind of conned me out of a car so he could get to church. So we've laughed that I said you couldn't have it till your second year, but he got one last year. It was just too far away to go. He goes to a small Lutheran school. So yeah.
Yeah, talking about habits, and I still pray a prayer that my grandmother taught me to say before leaving the house at any given time. And I think those things can only be learned at home. And
Mhm.
other things, part of the habits are the idea of making it a priority, right? Like Gigi was saying, we're the same. We're on vacation. We will look for the closest church. When we were playing soccer, where are we going to go? So those are things that reinforce uh, our young people uh, this idea that this is a priority, this is important, and this is what defines you.
I also think it's important to get them involved things that aren't just within the confines of your parish. Um, when they were very little, um, we learned the night prayer that our friends were using. for their kids, and they had 7 kids. So we figured if it was good enough for them, it was good enough for us. And so our kids learned that from a very young age, that that was just something you were going to do before you went to bed. Um, I also, we prayed the angel of God prayer in the car on the way to school. Sometimes it was because getting in the car was not always a pleasant experience, when you're trying to get everybody in the car. And so I got to learn what was important to them, what they were going to pray for. Um, and I also think acts of service were really important in our household. We took them to volunteer at a really young age. And one of the places we went, we cooked dinner and brought it. And it was for homeless folks. And it was interesting. We brought some other friends, and my daughter was probably 3 or 4, and she was handing out seconds of bread, walking between the tables. And it wasn't in the safest neighborhood, but the house was safe. And we knew the people where we were at. And they're like, are you going to let her go in the living room and hand out food? I was like, yes, yes, we are. And then on the way home, my son saw a little tent city, and he's like, Mom, I bet some of the food we made ended up in those tents. And I was like, yeah, I bet it really did, Joe. And so he connected that at a very young age, which was wonderful for him.
And I think that like perfectly segues into our next question. And how can we, you as, or we, I'm not a parent yet, but I'm an aunt to many. So how can we create a home environment that encourages opportunities to grow in faith? And I think an acts of service, just as you mentioned, is such a great example of that.
I will say to many of the parents that are, listening to us or watching us, is to not to be afraid. We know as a church, we know that it's a lot to ask a parent to, sort of teach or catechize your child. That's what the church offers, catechesis, in the parish and everything. But when I say do not be afraid, is to you yourself learn. And what I mean by that, today technology can help us answer many of the questions. You got to be very careful what you look into. But one of the things that my family used to do when we went to mass, kids are not paying attention as much. That's a given. So my kids got used to me asking them questions when we were heading home. Hey, did you like what Father said? Remember what he said? Oh, that reading today was beautiful. So I would make comments like that, and my kids will go like, yeah, Dad, So after a while, they got used to at least paying attention to something. So that was one thing. But another thing, I'll say that back to creating habits, and Natalie, I think you said, and you mentioned it also, which is, all right, we'll pray before meals every time. We'll pray when we get in the car when we go to school. We pray when we got home from being outside. We pray at night before going to bed. So these are very concrete things that you can do and very simple, and it doesn't have to be too complicated. Whatever comes out of your heart, and talk to God and allow them to see you as a parent do it.
I think you're bringing up such a good point in that it doesn't have to be complicated. And I think that's where a lot of times we get stuck in thinking like, I need to have this big old experience with my child. And I know that sometimes teens just don't talk when we get into the car after school. I was that kid. I was a total introvert. And my mom would ask, how was your day? I'm fine. We all give that answer. We've all given our parents that answer at some point. And so my mom had to kind of like create different questions to get more out of us. And I have there's 3 girls. So I'm the oldest, the middle sister, she's a talker. And there were times where in the mornings, my mom would say, okay, we're going to do our prayer. We had a 20-minute drive to school, and like, give me 3 people that we needed to pray for or something. So that way my mom knew either we have a test coming up, or our friend is being mean to us, or maybe we're having a hard time in a friendship relationship. And we were like 7, 8 years old having these conversations. Mm-hmm. So by the time that we got to high school, we had a little bit more of that comfort in being able to tell my mom, like, hey, I'm having this situation with a friend, or I have this test that I am just not looking forward to and I am stressed. So then she knew that if, like, I didn't need to go to soccer practice maybe that day because I was already dealing with something. And so then she would tell me, okay, like, I will pray for you. She wouldn't tell me, let's go into prayer right now, because then sometimes, like, that would stress me out a little bit. But she would say, just let you know, I am going to, like, pray that you have this type of experience, or do you want to do it together? It was that invitation that then I think made a big difference. And now I find myself doing it with my nieces and nephews, even when they're little. And my nephew, he's 5, doesn't like going to YMCA because he was having, there was a kid that was bullying him a little bit. Okay, what's the name? Do you think we should pray for him? I guess. Okay, let's try it. And then I let him lead it. The conversation went a little bit everywhere, but we got to, like, join in prayer. And that was just, like, such a small thing that helped us get there. And we're creating that environment now at 5 years old, in hopes that when he is a teen, he is in confirmation or post, he knows that he can always come back to that as well.
My husband got a little brother for his 4th birthday. They share a birthday. And at his little brother's baptism, the priest said, if you can't have fun in God's house, whose house can you have fun in? And that was a mantra that we tried to play out. So when we were deciding where we were going to sit as a family, because, you know, Catholics have their reserved pew that they always tend to sit at, um, I was not very happy, but we chose the front pew on the side so they could see the choir, they could see the priest, they could see the altar, they could see what was going on. And then we also had to be okay if they didn't misbehave, right? You know, I have a memory, a core memory of my son climbing under the pew, up over the next pew, and back into our pew when he was a toddler. And the people across the church smiling at me like, yeah, mom, we were there. We get it. That's just part of having a young person at church. You know, we didn't, you know, get really mad at him. Um, and so he had a front row seat. They had a front row seat to what was going on. And I think that helped too. And the curiosity, you know, we go to the Easter Vigil. We've done that for forever. My husband was in charge of RCIA. And I think when my son was 3, one time he blurted out, that sure was a lot of water, you know, that was getting, you know, poured on somebody's head. And okay, let's talk about that when we go home. Yep, you're right. That's what's going on, you know. So, you know, for us, it started when they were little. We also prayed with my son and now with my daughter before big events, right? So, before a triathlon, before they finally go in the water, we have prayed with him. I am happy to say, even if it is online, you know, over the phone, every race he's ever done. And we pray for Mother Mary to keep him safe. And he prays to Saint Sebastian and he wears that medal. And we've had to replace the medal. And it's fine because he's giving himself and that race to something bigger than just the win.
That is awesome, and also it's very gratifying when, at least like you and me, when our kids are older and they call you, Dad, can you please pray for this? Or
Oh
my friend is having this. Can you pray for her? Or things so
yeah. Mm-hmm.
they can trust that we parents um, care about them and their friends, and that we entrust everything to God. And I think that is also an important lesson. Um, and like I said, please don't think that you have to do this complicated thing. Is sometimes even in silence, you can show your kid that you're praying for him or her. Make the sign of the cross. Just keep a little bit of silence and ask God, to guide you, and that is it. And when I said that technology, there are a lot of applications now, apps that can help you in those moments, that you know that will uh, can leave a lasting memory on your child. One of the biggest memory that I always share is that kids get up at night being afraid. It's thundering, and my daughter would come and touch me and say, "Dad, I cannot sleep," and I go back to with her to her room and start praying with her. They say, "Let's trust our Mother Mary um, to protect us." And then we will pray and she will fall asleep and she will always remember those things. So that is part of the creating good habits, creating an environment. One quick thing is that also create special areas. It's always advisable to families to have their own small altar. You don't have to have all kinds of things in there, but maybe a crucifix, maybe a little image of our Mother Mary or anything. But you know that that's an area where you can stop for a second and say, "Hey, I'm leaving. Guide me, take me." That sort of thing. Everywhere I am, I always have this little, you know, uh, mementos or things that remind me we're Catholic, we're Christians, and we have faith. So,
I think the other thing that you hit on is um prayer doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like there's not a set you have to do it this way or God's not going to
correct.
hear it. And so I think when you start early and you get to have those conversations like with your 5-year-old nephew where it goes sort of all over the place, that's okay. God's going to listen no matter what. Um it's been very cool for me as a parent to ask my kids for prayer. Last year, our parish went through a very hard time, um, and a young person committed suicide. And I was on the way to the hospital, and I couldn't call. I mean, I couldn't tell my son what I wanted him to do, but I was driving on the way to the hospital, and I was scared, and I knew like I needed all the prayers that I could ever get. So I called him and I said, I need you to pray, and I need you to call all your friends that pray and ask them to pray for a special intention. Um, and that was comforting to me, that it was a both ends sort of deal. And one of my kids has some anxiety issues, and the doctor recommended doing some meditation. And the meditation we landed on was just saying the Hail Mary. And we will hold hands and look each other in the eye when it's a really bad moment and just repeat it. And I could say it slow and I could take the breath in. Um, and that got them through a lot of like moments of panic and dread.
Yeah, I think that invitation to prayer is
Mm.
a big thing. And like Joaquin, like what you said, even if it's a crucifix that's on a in the hallway, in the house, or a Last Supper, a Bible that is open, a saint, having little
My
like,
dining room.
yeah, having like little touch points, throughout the house or even in their room. Um, and it creates that connection.
One thing for my daughter who's 16, tiny saints are a big deal. She has a bazillion tiny saints, but they come with a card and she knows who they are and she can tell me this story. She's proud of the fact that she has the NCYC one that some of her friends don't have that didn't go. Um, Whatever way that they want to do it, I'm in.
Mhm.
Oh,
I love
absolutely,
that.
absolutely. And um, in confirmation, they have to pick a saint. Make sure they're good friends with that saint, uh,
Exactly.
because they chose that name to be confirmed with that name, understanding that they will now have a relationship with that saint and many others. We were blessed. My daughter was born on December the 12th. There was no way she was not going to be named Guadalupe. So my my desire was to call her Lupita all her life, and she hates Lupita. But but that's her name, Sabina Guadalupe, and so, and that shows again part of our faith, how we choose their name or how we how we make them relate to the saint, and 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 in that sense also they have role models. So that's another aspect. Uh, we as parents role models, but also their confirmation saints or other saints that could be part of their life. You mentioned Saint Sebastian, right, as the um, patron saints of athletes. Is that it?
Yep,
Right?
and that's my son's confirmation saint.
Imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And um my daughter was younger and was very interested in Carlos Acutis. And
Oh
so
wow.
that's who she chose. So um she can't wait for his big day is coming up. I know we'll get up and we will watch it. If we don't have a watch party at our church, we may do that. Um because that's something she could relate to, right then. And so then she'll get the books. Young kids sometimes they just like to have the things. And if it's a church thing, I'm probably gonna say yes.
Good.
I love that. So, Joaquin, you mentioned about being role models. So, parents, I've always heard, are the first catechists to their children. And I think, yes, our teens' schedules are really busy right now. And then parent schedules, if the teen is busy, the parent is probably busier because they're having take the kid to school, go to work, pick up, leave work, pick up from school, prep meals, go to sports, any other extracurricular activities, theater, whatever it may be, grocery shopping, laundry, on top of all of that. So both like as parents and then as teens, or for like helping our teens, how can we ensure that the young person is engaged in their faith when they are so busy?
Um, I think that areas that are very concrete, and you mentioned, or I mentioned also the confirmation part. I would like to invite those listening to us that if they have confirmation age children, look at their books in your free time. Most um, religious education books now have a family component, things that they can do at home and learn from it. That will be one thing, because that's very concrete. Is already related to what they're learning in, and I'm not asking you to do homework. I'm not asking you to get a complete lesson on this. It's just to quickly look over and see, oh, they're talking about these things and that thing. So, and perhaps if you want to go farther, mention something. Tell them, I care. I know you're learning about this. Talk to the catechist. Talk to the person in charge to know how to. And um, I mentioned earlier that the parish that I used to work had a family catechesis. Every week, kids left classes with something to do at home, with parents needed to help. And those are very concrete things that you can do. Not everybody does it, but so keep them engaged also means to not only understand or know what they're learning or what they're going through in life, whether they're in high school or everything, but keeping engaged is also having them. I like what Natalie said, asking them, um, may I pray with you for this, or can we talk about this? So giving them the space for them to decide whether they want to engage or not, but make sure you're there for them.
The other thing is, if you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer. You don't have to be
Amen.
perfect as a parent. Look it up. Say, hey, I think I'm going to ask Father. Um, or where can we go to find that question together? The answer. Um, and the other thing is just if you're going to ask them to do something, you need to be willing to do it yourself. Um, so if you're going to stay out late, you're going to get up. If I'm going to stay out late, I'm still going to get up. We're going to go to church. It always cracks me up. We go to 10:30 mass. Like, I don't know why anybody would ever call me at 10:30 on a Sunday. That's where I am 95% of the time. And that's just where, you're going to find me in that second pew by the baptismal font.
You know, one question I used to ask the families in our family catechesis thing is like, can you tell me how many churches are within a 5 mile radius? I live in a highly populated area, so we had about 10 different Catholic churches.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, even if it is in Portuguese or Chinese or any language, but if there is a mass that is convenient to you because you will be doing something, just go there.
Yep.
So if we knew that we were going to have a tournament that day,
Mm-hmm.
we would go at 7 a.m. My kids would hate it because it's very early, but
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Or we will find the latest as soon
Yep.
as we arrive, 7 p.m. mass. And so there will always be a mass within your commute or distance, whatever. And that's another thing, like you said earlier, when you go for tournaments or vacations, you pick the places, the same thing within our area. What mass? And they said, but if it's Chinese, I won't understand. I said, like, no, if you're in mass, you will know what's going. You might not
And well,
understand, but you know what's going on. So
and we try to make it a plan too. Like if we know we're going to have a super busy weekend and, now there's just three of us at home, but we're going to go all over the place. Okay, when can we fit it in and when can we try and go together? Or when can one of us go, with our daughter that's still home? How will that all work out?
mhm, mhm.
A plan. It's hard. The other thing I tell my kids, it's hard um to be a witness to your faith when not everybody else is. And I try and give them the support and the strength, and I'll take the heat for that. It's prom season. Um, and it shouldn't bug me as much as it does, but the dresses that some of the girls wear, I'm like, oy vey, like, hello. And so my daughter knows that's just not gonna be something I'm up for. But you can blame me, right? Like if you have a dress and somebody thinks it's not revealing enough and the slit isn't high enough, my mom, my mom said I couldn't do it. I'll take it.
My mom used to tell me the same thing. If you're at a party in high school and
Oh yeah.
you start to feel uncomfortable, just say, sorry, my mom's calling and I gotta go. Like
Yep.
use me as an excuse. And I think that was something that helped in building that relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
again, that then led to like building in faith. And Gigi said something at the very beginning about going out and doing like service or acts of service. Um, that is something that my mom, my grandma were like super big on was service. And so kind of even going back to like the faith and how we found times to be able to partake in different acts of service, not just during Lent when we're called to, do some of those acts of service, but throughout. And now it's to the point where like I get to invite my mom. Do you want to come with me to do X, Y, and Z? The deacons of the diocese are hosting a food packing day. Who wants to come? We just throw it into the family group chat, and this is from anybody in the family. And whoever says okay, let's meet up at this time, and we're heading on down. During the pandemic, my mom and I both worked our food pantry at the parish. She was a teacher. I was a youth minister at that time, so I was flexible with my schedule, and she only taught, I think, like for 3 hours in the morning, because then at that point, like that was just a lot of on-screen time for her students. And so then we would go in between her breaks to go and work at the food pantry. And those were in little times that like we got to see faith in action. And so again, sometimes those times were scheduled, sometimes it was not. Sometimes it was through Girl Scouts that my sisters were working at a soup kitchen. And so then that became moments of, again, it was not within the church walls, but we got to serve and practice our faith through service in a different way.
Des Moines has a large refugee population, I think, as does everybody. But that's one of the places that I've chosen to volunteer, and my husband has a truck. So we will tend to go pick up furniture and deliver it somewhere. And it never fails when you're dealing with somebody from another culture or another language that something sort of gets fouled up in the communication. You're there longer, or it's a much smaller staircase than you thought. um But once my kids got to do it and they had that sense of helping and their goodness in their heart, um, my son and his best friend, they could complain about a lot, but they never complained if I asked them to go move furniture. Could you just go help do this today? When can we do it in your schedule? But I need help. I can't get this, couch up 3 flights. Okay, mom, let's go. And I know it's because they got something out of it because they started when they were little.
Mm.
And that actually brings also the idea of engagement within the faith community, within the church. A lot of teenagers can support the religious education program, being assistant to any catechist. We made sure to have at least one or two teenagers in every classroom to help the catechist. And another thing is, do they have any other talent? Musicians, can they also participate in the choir? Um, well, altar servers, um, ushers. So anything within the church ministry life that they can be part of is also very good. My parish just was announcing last week that yesterday they were going to start planting trees around the property because this eco uh,
Ratio?
eco something
Mm-hmm.
organization was
Oh,
was helping us to do that, and a lot of teenagers showed up, especially because Father mentioned this could be a good thing for your high school hours, that sort of things. But still, it's an opportunity to engage at a different level with your faith and your community.
um, we have, as a youth minister, we have the first Sunday of every month at one mass is the youth mass. And I give them service hours for coming to plan it, and then a service hour for being at mass in whatever ministry they're going to do. Um, and so before they graduate 8th grade and we talk about confirmation, I let them know that, hey, your high school will give you, the Catholic high school will give you service hours. You need to get so many, but you get a cord if you get 200. And I say there's no reason why somebody at my parish shouldn't be able to get 200 hours. So I send emails home all the time. Parents, please show this to your kid. We need help with this. You can go help do this. Um, and my prayer can really be that the parents let them know.
It's so funny, Gigi, that you say that. Because in talking, I think about leadership, in just my time as a youth minister previously, and then now in this role that I'm in, and getting to witness a teen come in, 8th grade and then freshmen. Now, that first group of teens that I had, they're all 22, 23 years old. They're finishing up college right now. And it was those that chose to take on leadership roles that ended up making a big difference, even within their family. I had one teen. He started the summer that he finished 8th grade, transitioning into freshman year. He went to Steubenville Conference from there, and it was his grandma that signed up, not even his parents. The parents were not that involved in their faith. And he really liked it. So he's like, I want to do more. I will help at this food packing day, or for Easter, we made food baskets. And then from there, he got very involved in the confirmation program, got confirmed, became a core team leader. When he graduated, he had 1,100 hours completed with us. So I signed the letter for the school. Was applying for a scholarship. I got so many calls because they were like, what kid is actually going to give 1,100 hours of service? And I said, well, first of all, it was over a 4-year term. And I said, but like, this was all the things that he did. And now he's like studying biology. But through all of that process, he got his parents involved. For one, they had to drive him. So might as well, even if it was just 2 hours of being there, that he was going to serve something, the mom was just sitting in the car. So I went and said, hey, what would you like to also just kind of see what he's doing? Do you ever wonder what your child is doing when they're here and like within the parish walls? And so she said, okay, I'll see. Came, really enjoyed it, told her husband, yo, you need to come see like what they're doing. And it's some of the simplest things, or sometimes it was a big old grandiose project that we were working on, but then they got involved from there. So instead of just going to mass maybe once or twice a month, which is what they were doing, they picked it up to every Sunday. Give it like in 2 years later after that, the dad said, I was confirmed as a baby in Mexico. I think I want to go through RCIA to kind of just figure out and like refresh a lot of like what I had learned. And I want to be able to talk to my child about confirmation. So, okay, so he goes through the process. Come to find out they were never married through the Catholic Church. So in the senior year of this child, they get their marriage. I'm blanking on the term, but
Unvalidated.
unvalidated. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, so then by the time that the younger siblings started coming in, they already kind of knew where to fit in. And then they were then built on that leadership. So I think it's really awesome. We have parents that are so involved and then they help their child grow into it. But also, what a blessing to see a child bring their parents into the faith.
Yes.
You just don't know what that little seed is going to be. Um, one year, one of our seminarians from our parish came back and was helping at getting ready for the Easter Vigil, and it was sort of like an all-day Saturday practice thing and making sure everything was right. And I looked at my son just look up at the seminarian, and it was somebody that he had seen, and he just thought he was the coolest kid, right? Like he was a seminarian. And so then he said, "Can I stay and help read?" Sure, like I'm going to tell you no, right? So, then he stayed for the afternoon, and then he wanted to come early to be sure that um the big fire was lit. And then when that seminarian went to Rome, they exchanged letters. When the seminarian got ordained, he ended up in my son's high school. And they got to be really close and really, really good friends. And that I think has helped him. Um, the priest suggested the liturgy of the hours. And then it was like, okay, mom, did you know about iBreviary, this app, or did you know about this app? And so then we're exchanging when and where we do it and how we do it. And Father Reed suggested adoration. And so, he was home for college. So he went and did adoration at a place that had 24-hour adoration. You just don't know who they might see and where that might get them the hook. And it doesn't have to be you.
I love that. So one of the things, as NFCYM is the host of NCYC, that's a common thing that we hear from parents actually in our evaluations was this lit not only a fire in my child's faith, but in my own faith. And again, as parents being that first catechist, that first role model, an example of what it means to live as a Catholic or live in faith. NCYC, I think, is a great place to be able to bring that together. And it's a great place or even opportunity to experience faith together. Again, going back, my mom had never experienced a retreat because that was just not what they did. And I'm going to kind of date her in the late 70s when she was a teen. They didn't go through the confirmation process like what we have now. They didn't have these great, regional, county, and national conferences that we have now. So the first time she got to experience one was when I was already a youth minister, and we had a chaperone that couldn't make it all of a sudden. And then I said, Mom, I need a chaperone. She was already safe environment trained, she was already a catechist. So I said, it's easy for you to just come with. And wow, how her faith even grew before, we were going to be going through some hard family times. We didn't know then yet, but that her fire was lit in a very new way. Do you guys have any experiences like that? Either you with your child at NCYC, or you saw a teen and a parent have an experience like that?
Yes. Two. One, my oldest, who's 35 now, we actually went to Steubenville, and he had that experience, but I was a chaperone. So I was not necessarily working for the church as a youth minister, but so I went as a parent, the chaperone, and I saw that. But then that sparked like you said, the fire. So he wanted to go to NCY and see a much broader church, not just his small parish but to see how everybody from all over comes and enjoys and shows their faith. was very inspiring. And I think that one thing that he told me later after participating in all these things is that his friends would ask him, "Where were you for the last few days that we haven't heard from you?" So he had to tell the stories, and that's a way of evangelization without even trying, because he's sharing the joy, the music, the games, the speakers, and everything that really touch their heart. My daughter at age 8 participated in an international congress for girls her age in Rome, and so we need to prepare and allow our kids to experience these things because it will change their lives. It's just an amazing thing.
That Holy Spirit's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
My husband and I both worked at a Catholic summer camp. And so as our kids, they could go when they were 8. And they had been there several times to see us do stuff, as they were planning some reunions. But when it came time for them to go to Catholic youth camp, I was like, oh my gosh, what if they hate it, right? Like it was so integral to both of our lives. Um, and I'm happy to say they both went, they both loved it. They both counseled. My son has been on staff. Um, and that is a great, it's a diocesan church camp. Um, but for NCYC, um, I think as a parent, the first time I went, again as a youth minister, my son was, I think, a sophomore. And so I was taking him. Things had changed at NCYC. Adoration was not a big deal. The first, I'm a two-time youth minister. So in the 80s, adoration was just not something that they did. Um, so we're at Lucas Oil Stadium, and we're all sitting in our row, and it's time for adoration, and you could hear the blower. I mean, you could hear the blower, at an NFL stadium. It was that quiet. And my son said, "Can I go down closer?" Yes, yes, you can. And I just sat, like, okay, I'm not gonna do it now. I just sat in um my chair, and I just did the ugly cry of the Lord. Like, look what my son has asked to do. Look what he and his friends are doing. Um, and it planted that seed in him. He had some profound um moments with Jesus at that time. Somebody had put a key in his hood um with a church. And we were traveling, and he wanted to go find that church because he kept it. And we did, because he couldn't feel it. So he was like, that had to be there for a reason. And so both of my kids through adoration, and I do really think it's adoration at NCYC when it's so big and it's so profoundly quiet, when it could be so loud, even with little murmurs and whispers. um they take it very seriously as some way that they can personally connect with God. And then to hear my daughter, she goes to Catholic school, they have adoration throughout the school day. um she and her friends will hook up at adoration before lunch, while the lunch line goes down in the cafeteria. um to me, that's, and she says, that's my time to go say hi to Jesus, Mom. He wants to talk to me. I'm just gonna go say hi. Okay. um and when my son was home last year for Christmas, um he went, and at one point in time we have a perpetual adoration at one of our churches, and I finally texted him because I was that mom that just wanted to know that everybody was home okay. And I was like, hey dude, could you tell Jesus good night and come home? um but those are things I think without NCYC, um they would have done. um Natalie, do you want me to share my daughter's story?
Sure.
So my daughter went to NCYC, and we volunteered to help introduce the speakers. And we met Chris. And Chris was like, yeah, there's a national group of people that get together as well. And so she was a freshman, and she said to herself, hey, I really want to be part of the National Youth Advisory Committee for NFCYM. And she told me that, and I was like, okay, but we're in Cali and we're doing our thing and trying to get to the next speaker. And she went on a retreat, and she said, hey mom, I have to tell you what I want to do. But I need a little bit to just let it settle in my soul. So 24 hours after she'd been home, I was like, okay, it's been 24 hours. Can you tell me now what you think you want to do? And she said, I want to apply for National Youth Advisory Committee. And so she applied, and she is now on the National Youth Advisory Committee for NFCYM. And to watch her bloom and grow in that role has been beyond outstanding. I'm sort of her secretary a lot of times because she's in that busy junior year. So she'll be like, hi, I need you to do this. So sometimes I'm setting up meetings for her. Sometimes I'm typing something up. But she is bringing back a retreat to our diocese that's been gone for juniors in high school. And she has full support of the bishop. So the bishop has said, hey, if Katie's in the room, to the youth ministers and to the diocesan youth minister, do what Katie needs. And so she had to adjust to being a junior, but having an adult voice in the room and knowing that what she said was going to matter. And now she's modeling that for her friends that are a part of the committee of bringing back the retreat. So it's been beyond fantastic.
Thank you for sharing that, Gigi. And thank you, Joaquin, Gigi, in general. Just thank you again for being on this panel and being a part of this webinar. We are close to ending our time, but for all those watching, I think we heard some big major takeaways. One, again, the invitation. Invite your child to participate, again, whether it's in prayer, in an activity. And then second, listen and figure out like what they're interested in and how you can explore that a little bit more. How can you join them in digging deeper into what those interests are, and then how it can tie into faith. And then third, we've been talking a bit about NCYC. And so I have a link here just if you would like to learn more about NCYC, the National Catholic Youth Conference. It is taking place this November, the 20th to the 22nd in Indianapolis. Every odd year we're in Indianapolis, and even year we're in Long Beach, California, if that's where you're a little bit closer. And I invite you to just think about maybe what would it look like for my teen and I to go together. If you are unsure, check if your parish is attending, and if not, then your diocese. And you could, join a larger group. But if you prefer to do something a little bit more intimate, take a look at that. Maybe ask one of your own best friends if they have a child that is also a teen, and you pair up together. You become your own little parent and child teen group, and you can experience this NCYC together. It's a wonderful experience, a wonderful, again, national conference where teens from all over the country are coming together in one place to join in prayer and then hear from speakers. Of course, enjoy music and an exhibit hall. Maybe get to visit some college tables and see, what is out there and available for your child. And so, again, I invite you to partake in this and dig deeper into what NCYC is. One of the things that we did promise, and we shared it when we gave this announcement out for Facebook, was that we would be raffling off a free ticket to NCYC.
Oh, wow.
So yes, so we have a good number here, and I'm just going to scroll through. I'm going to close my eyes and count to 3, and wherever the name drops.
No fundraising for you. I'm so jealous.
I have here Sarah Mesa as our winner of our free ticket. So I will be emailing you a little bit more information on how to register, get more information, and then get a code for that free pass.
Congratulations.
So congratulations, Sarah. Yes. And again, we will be sending off this recording, the transcript as well, and then any questions that were dropped in the Q&A as a transcript through an email. That way you can then refer back to that as well.
Can I say one thing about NCYC as a youth minister?
Mm-hmm.
Ask other youth ministers for help. I think it can be daunting that first time. What do you need to do? Reach out to another parish, reach out to NFCYM. They can hook you up with somebody. So you can get your kids there. You will not regret it. church with thousands of people who are just like you is unbelievable.
Yeah. And also get in touch with your diocesan office.
Oh, yeah. Them too.
That too. That is very important too. So thank you all so much for joining us. And again, thank you, Gigi and Joaquin. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your week.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.